A member of our community, we're going to call her Raven, is on today's episode. I sent out a request on social media to have a member of our community come on the podcast to talk about grooming. And Raven was like, pick me. I want to talk about grooming. If you're interested in interacting with me on social media, follow BTR on Facebook at Betrayal Trauma Recovery, Instagram at btr.org_, TikTok at btr.org, and YouTube at Betrayal Trauma Recovery or btr.org. On our social media channels, you can interact with women who are commenting back and forth about what they think of these episodes. You can be anonymous on social media depending on what your profile says. If you're not anonymous on social media and you want to be anonymous, you can go to our website, search for this episode in the search bar. So, for example, the title of this one is My Husband Grooming Me? So you can put that in the search bar on our website. This podcast episode will come up, and then on this particular episode, you can comment and interact with other women anonymously on our website. Okay, Raven, so you volunteered to talk about grooming. Thank you. What motivated you to respond to my request?
Thanks for having me. When I first saw the post, I actually didn't know what it was, so I looked it up and I was like, oh, and I think maybe some other women haven't heard that term yet, and it's something I would like to explore more.
So obviously we're not talking about grooming in terms of brushing our teeth or combing our hair, but we're talking about the kind of grooming that an abusive man does to give the impression he's a really good guy. This is when he's manipulating someone with a goal in mind. In this way, an abusive man uses words and actions in a calculated way to create a feeling of safety so he can trap his victim. We're going to chat about grooming, and if she had any questions, I was going to answer them. And I didn't ask her to, but she ended up doing some research about grooming in preparation for our chat. So can you talk about some of the things you learned?
Basically, it's anything that someone does to seem like they're the knight in shining armor, doing good things to seem good and hide the bad. I'm kind of confused about the difference between gaslighting and grooming because they both kind of make you seem like the crazy person or the bad person.
Grooming is intended to set the baseline, quote unquote, reality of his character. He wants to manufacture a persona that you judge everything by from then on. So if your baseline perception of someone, anyone, is that they're an honest, kind, compassionate person, then you filter their actions through that lens. So if your baseline perception of your husband is that he's honest and kind and compassionate, then you're going to filter everything that he does through that perception. Because if your baseline perception of your husband is that he's really a wonderful, loving person, if something weird happens, you're going to interpret that as like an off day, or he's maybe going through something hard. It's going to feel outside the norm. And so then you'll try to explain it according to the perception that you have. So since he is such a good person, maybe he needs help. Maybe there's something wrong. Contrast that with thinking about how you would interpret someone's actions if your baseline perception were that they are a compulsive liar. If you have the perception that someone's a compulsive liar, you're going to be guarded and on the lookout. You're not going to be vulnerable with them. So abusive men have this awareness that they need to set this baseline perception and that you're going to filter everything through that. So the intent of grooming is to make sure that your baseline perception of him is that he's the good guy. This is the type of manipulation that happens day in and day out all the time. And if someone's doing this from the very beginning of the relationship, from the moment that you meet them, they're purposefully trying to control how you perceive them and also control how everybody else perceives them too. Rather than just trying to get to know you, rather than just being in a relationship with a real person, they're very intentional about the image that they're portraying. They'll go way out of their way to set up this baseline perception. So, for example, I was talking to a friend and she was telling me she was dating a new guy and he was divorced. He had an ex-wife and children and apparently had a lot of money, and apparently his ex-wife was crazy. So this is a red flag for me. Like, okay, he's probably an abuser. So my friend got stuck about 3 hours away, kind of in the middle of nowhere. She had a flat tire around 10 p.m. Now, if you want to be helpful, you could do a lot of things in this situation. Like if she called me, I have kids that are asleep, right? So I'd say, let's call AAA. They can come out there, and if they can't fix your tire, they can drive you to the nearest town and you can get a hotel for the night. Something like that would be a reasonable way to help someone out. And if she didn't have money, he could have offered to pay for the hotel room, something like that. But no, he put his sleeping kids in the back of his car on a school night, drove 3 hours to get to her. So she had to wait 3 hours to get help. Like, she could have got help faster from someone else. And then drove her home 3 hours. And she thought he was so incredible. When she told me the story, she was like, he really pulled out all the stops to help me. And I was thinking, whoa, he really pulled out all the stops to convince you he was a good guy. But really good guys are logical. They would just call AAA. They wouldn't put a sleeping child in the back of the car and drive 6 hours through the whole night. And his plan had a added bonus, which was the next day, he drove her back up the 3 hours. So he got to spend that much time with her, which I think was his intent. That's an example of grooming. Grooming is a form of gaslighting, but grooming is always experienced by the victim as positive. Grooming is when she feels good, she feels amazing, she feels loved and cared for. She feels special. Gaslighting can be either positive or negative. Gaslighting is when he's purposefully altering her reality, and grooming is that for sure. But gaslighting is also when he tells you that you're having memory problems or that you're crazy, or when he says, "What's wrong with you? Why would you think I would ever use porn? You don't know me at all." He's trying to have her doubt her perceptions of reality. So I would say gaslighting can be positive or negative, and grooming is always positive. Do you feel like you've experienced that?
Yeah, so we met and things went pretty fast. The night he asked me to be his girlfriend, I told him my life story. I was like, hey, here's who I am. Here's some mistakes I've made. I don't want to do that anymore. And like, take me or leave me kind of thing. And he said, that's in the past. I love you. So he had a job at the training center for missionaries of my church, which you have to hold certain standards to keep. He never misses a Sunday of church, even if he has like 103 fever. He presented himself as this perfect person, and he was doing me a favor by loving me. And it was very apparent after we got married, more so because his parents would be like, oh, all the girls were all over him and you were really lucky. And it worked really well in his favor. When I found out about all his porn a year into marriage, I told him I wanted a divorce, and he called his parents crying. He didn't know why I was acting crazy and irrationally over something so little. And then they said maybe it's because I was in a bad place spiritually. He was making it seem like I'm the one acting crazy and irrationally because he would never do something like that because everyone's always seen him as good spiritually.
So you experience grooming while dating, and then after marriage, he starts gaslighting you. And he's also groomed everyone around him to perceive that his baseline character is a really good guy. And you feel like he's a good guy too until you realized he wasn't?
Well, so he overcompensates a lot. I'd always feel like, well, he's a great father and he's a great husband besides this, because he would take the kids and he does the cooking and he does the cleaning. And when I was really angry and like yelling, he would just be calm and be like, I understand. Everyone just saw that side of him, that he had it all put together. He was the one holding this marriage together because I'm falling apart.
Did you know that he was abusive, or did you just kind of have a sense that something was wrong?
So I heard the term abuse and I was laughing. I was like, my husband's not an abuser. And once I started reading about abuse, I was like, oh my goodness, he really is. I had no idea at that time.
Yeah, and even when you didn't know it was abuse, you were still resisting it because you sensed something was wrong. You were actively trying to protect yourself. And in your case, you had him start pornography addiction recovery, thinking that that would create some safety. Take us back to that time. What was he doing while he was in quote unquote recovery for his porn addiction?
When he started working more on the 12 steps and he was making amends to people, he would again just like say all the right things without being honest and manipulating them to make him seem better than he was. And then when I'm not doing good, people would be like, "Oh, but I thought you were better because he reached out to me and he said he was sorry and he made these amends and said he was going to get better." So, like, grooming others to believe that he's better or believe that we're better and kind of not seeing why I'm still in a place where I'm at. So he was doing more stuff. And I told him, I was like, I see you're doing more, but I still feel like something's off. And I just wanted to believe he was different. And then yesterday, actually, he came to me and told me the last 5 months he's been lying straight to my face. And he's been acting out the last 5 months, actually, a lot, probably more than ever. And I kicked him out of the house this morning.
Oh, and here we are on the podcast. Are you okay? No. The answer is no.
I'm actually better than ever. I feel so free. In the very beginning, I would check his phone, whatever. And I started doing that just a little while back because something was off. But he shared this, and I actually feel really empowered right now, but also overwhelmed.
Whoa. Wow. I can't believe we're talking right now. There's so much to process. You know, this fake recovery that he did when he was lying straight to your face, it's very similar to fake vulnerability that a lot of these abusers will do, where they just share a little part of something. And then the victim's like, well, there's no way he would share something like that if he wasn't honest. And it makes them feel really close to him, like he's a good guy because he's open and honest. So fake recovery is very similar to fake vulnerability. It's manufactured to trap us. Wow.
So the other night we had a talk with his parents. They're very toxic. And he was defending me. He was just saying, yeah, I've been abusive. He grooms so well that he'll admit it. He'll say all the right things, like, yeah, I've been abusive and I've done this, all while he's still acting out. He's still abusing me. So here he is being vulnerable and being fake vulnerable, like admitting he's being abusive.
And people are thinking, oh, he's admitting to what he did, so he must have changed. Why won't she forgive him? That kind of thing. That's super scary. People around you right now aren't recognizing how dangerous your situation is.
Yes. So he's doing more work. And yet the other night he woke up and told me he groped me in my sleep. I had reached out to some friends and they're like, that's not normal. And so I told him that. He kind of acknowledged it. So I told his parents and they said, oh, honey, that's normal. That's a part of the marriage contract.
What? Sexual assault is part of the marriage contract?
But I was like, no, this is my body and I still have a right to say when he can touch me and when he cannot touch me. And they said, oh, that's probably why he has a porn problem then. So I've stopped talking to them for now.
You are very brave and you are strong.
Thanks. I've come a long way. Yeah. I think the hardest part is I feel like I could never divorce him because I'm too scared of like what he would do. I just worried, oh, well, who would he be with? And like, why couldn't I be like her? But right now, I don't want him either. And so I'm in this tricky spot. How do you know when it's time? Will I have the strength to do what I need?
One thing to keep in mind for right now is that even if you remain married, you still don't have a say over who he's seeing. Marriage doesn't solve that problem. If the person's not healthy, if they're not willing to be honest, if they're not willing to be faithful to their wife, then marriage isn't going to stop them. So if that's one of your worries, just let me help you release that.
I feel conflicted between almost ecstatic, like I knew I was right because something was telling me, but also kind of like, well, why didn't I listen to myself sooner? And feeling like I let myself down, but I can accept that I was doing the best I could.
You absolutely were doing the very best that you could. You were resisting the best way that you knew how. That's why I wrote the Living Free workshop, was to help women who are always resisting abuse. They just don't know exactly what it is and they can't anticipate what he's going to do. And you can find that at btr.org/livingfree. And that workshop takes you through what's happening, helps you anticipate what he's going to do next so that you can protect yourself. For those of you who relate, if you're asking, is my husband a good person? Is this just grooming? I'm so confused. you don't know where to turn, BTR is a safe place for you to process this. It's really important that you process it on your own without going to him with these concerns so that you can observe whether or not he really is a safe person or if he is abusive, because they are master manipulators and master groomers, and you want to be able to recognize what's going on. Thank you so much for being brave and strong and coming on today despite this huge thing happening in your life right now.
Thanks for having me.
If you are the praying type, she could really use your prayers. Since I recorded that podcast, things got very, very difficult for her. She actually spent some time in a domestic violence shelter. So just a call for prayers for her and for all of us as I pray for myself and all of you all the time. And for BTR to be able to reach every woman in the world who needs to hear this message. Anytime you rate the podcast, anytime you follow us, anytime you comment on our social media channels, it helps those algorithms so that other women can find us. So thank you.